Welcome, everyone. Super excited having you here for the next episode of Talking Cloud Podcast. I'm Grant Asplund here with my amazing technical wizard guest, Patrick Pushor. How are you, buddy?
Doing wonderful, Grant. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, listen, I'm the Gilligan, and to anyone, they're professors, and that you certainly are. You're kind of, you brush that off like it's nothing, but you're a deep thinker in this cloud space. But we're going to have a bit of fun today. I'm super excited. I mean, our guest is, she's a friend, she's a past colleague, and she's really doing some cool stuff, and I'm super excited to talk with her. But what we're going to talk about in the news segment today, I'm really keen on, and I think it's kind of interesting how we'll kind of tie those together. So why don't we just jump in, and I'm going to go over to the newsroom, and we're going to get started, okay?
Let's do it.
All right. So I wasn't going to have this up, but I did. But what the heck? It's kind of a giveaway on what we're going to talk about today. Everybody's talking about ChatGPT. Everybody's talking about AI. I mean, and if I'm being honest, Patrick, as I've been hearing about it, I've kind of have had this, hey, look, it's just faster computers, bigger data models means we can be more accurate. No big deal. I didn't really think of it any differently. And I saw this video. I've shared it with you, I know, and with a number of other friends. It's what I'm going to talk about today. We're going to discuss. As you can see, March 9th is the recording date. It's from Center for Humane Technology, a little over an hour long. And man, oh man, I got to tell you, when he starts out and he says, imagine getting a phone call from Oppenheimer in the 40s to learn about something he's created that's going to change the world, right? The atom bomb. That one kind of got me to sit up in my chair a little bit going, what?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, pretty profound comparison, isn't it?
Is AI really on a level of nuclear power, nuclear bombs, nuclear war, right?
Right.
And it just really struck me. So, of course, I kind of decided to sit up and pay attention.
Definitely.
And so
I think that part is in the start for a very, very good reason, right? It's a attention grabber. And it makes you wonder, how can this possibly be compared to something on that scale? And I think they do a pretty good job of describing the how right through the rest of the, hour 7? Yeah.
In fact, I think they do such a fantastic job. It's why I want to dedicate this segment to this video, to get as many people on the planet to watch this video, to understand this video, because I got to tell you, Patrick, for the first time in my 40 years in this industry, this is concerning to me. Okay? I mean, when Stuxnet occurred, I was kind of, silently going, oh man, that is so awesome, right? We can actually cause kinetic damage with code, right? I mean, this world is amazing. But now, as I watch this video, it's given me pause like never before on the responsibility we have in as we continue like a snowball rushing down the side of a mountain, getting bigger and bigger and bigger, this thing we call technology.
That's right.
So
that's right.
I don't want to be an alarmist.
To your earlier point, let's talk about the why. Because, for me, coming into AI fairly uneducated, maybe I'm less technical. I'm an everyday consumer. I'm like you. How powerful can it be? We train it with our own data. Even if it's got the whole perspective of the internet, it's got to crawl the whole thing. A lot of us have used ChatGPT. We understand the power. It's kind of like a super advanced search engine that kind of knows a lot more things. What's the big deal, Grant?
So what I tried to do, Patrick, with this segment is to break up and do some stops throughout the video that we can talk about. This is not, let me stress, this is not a substitute for watching the video in full. You're going to miss some very very key parts, like the chat dialogue with your AI chatbot now shipping in Snapchat. That, if you've got kids, you better watch, because it's out now, ladies and gentlemen. I've got mine. He popped up, she popped up, whatever it is, on my Snapchat a week ago. So we're going to walk through. I've got about, 6, 7, 8 stops through this video. We're going to talk about each one, and then we'll let everybody decide for themselves. So a couple of guys from Center for Humane Technology. I'm not doing them the respect by announcing their names, but please go watch this video. So first stop, let's understand what this is, right? Because when we talk about machine learning, we talk about AI, I thought it was really interesting, the acronym they chose. It was GULM, for Generative Large Language Multimodal Model. So it's so much bigger, and they do a fantastic job explaining the massive pivot that took place in 2017, because all of the effort before 2017 was very, very discipline focused. So if I'm a machine learning engineer working on video, and you're a machine learning engineer working on speech to text, they're like in two different universes. And in fact, the guy, he says you can't even read the same papers because they're just too different, because they were focused on twiddling bits in that silo.
That's right. And we as consumers experience that, if you think about it, right? I mean, we would see some advances over here, like you say, in some speech recognition, and then maybe we'd see a little bit of image-based kind of either recognition or mapping, but they would be advances unto themselves, right, in separate disciplines.
Precisely, yeah. And you're zeroing in on the key point, which is the incremental advancements because of the stratified or distributed engineering efforts, right? There were all these different ways to do it, but then something changed, and it changed in 2017, and it was the ability to look at everything literally as language, to see video, speech to text, and anything and everything else as language. And as soon as it all became language, it all went into the same bucket. And therefore, the research, the efforts, the advancements you make, I make, all go to the same project, to the same advancement. So these guys talk about it being a double exponential. It's an exponential advancement that we're going to see. And you'll learn as we keep going, it's more than that, because of the way it's self-propagating itself.
Yeah, right.
It's really startling. So these golems, as they call them, and it's intentional after the, there's a old folklore, right? Jewish folklore about a golem which is created that comes out of dust, right? And that's specifically why they selected it. So why am I kind of freaked out or going, whoa? As the parameters get larger and larger, as there gets these data models grow and get larger and larger, they all of a sudden acquire knowledge, ability. For example, you see on the far left, didn't know how to do modern arithmetic. Couldn't do it. All of a sudden, it could do it. And continued to improve. And the one on the far right is also, I thought, fascinating, because it never, this model, these researchers never taught anything other than English, all Q&A English. And then one day it just started answering in Perusian or Parisian. I mean...
That's right. It suddenly knew enough to do so it did. That's right.
this is the concern, right? Because
It is.
This
It is, and I think the other point of this is that two models did the same thing.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Like two
different
separate
ones.
models, related,
Yep.
but two different models did
Yep.
the same thing at the same time. I mean,
Yeah.
that's astonishing.
Yeah.
As they got capable enough, they both learned this, at about the same rate, which, tells me the strength is in the model. Obviously, it's in the data, but it's in the model.
It's in the model. Exactly right. Exactly right. Okay, so then it's not a big deal, though, right? It's just learning basic stuff that anybody's going to
right.
learn, right? I mean, there's no depth, there, right? There's, if you think of it,
Yeah,
there's no
simple ask response, right?
wrong.
Not quite.
Now, and I'll tell you, man, what blew me away about this particular segment of the video, of course, was theory of mind, thought of mind. We're talking about the ability to think strategically. Okay, that's what theory of mind is. Theory of mind is to be able to strategize, which is different
right.
than input-output. Okay,
That's right.
Now,
Take lessons from one domain, apply them to the other. That's right.
But what startled me as they were talking about this segment, and you'll see the dates, 2019, there's a teensy-beansy graph. 2020, you see it's jumped up to like that of a 3-year-old. 2022, January, it's nearly a 7-year-old, but in a mere 10 months, it's now nearly a 9-year-old. This is the exponential that they were talking about, right? Because all of a sudden, but this was only discovered, Patrick, 2 months ago.
I mean, it's astonishing. Yet, if you're a ChatGPT user, I think you already know this, because how you hack that model isn't technology. It isn't a hacker. It's language.
Yes, completely.
You are tricking a machine learning model using language. I mean,
Yes.
it has to be able to reason.
Yes.
Exactly. So I think we're already starting to feel this, but the fact that we already understand it can reason today I'm not even sure. It's probably reasoned better than I can.
Well, yeah, if it's not today, it's going to be. Right?
That's right.
Because now, even machine learning models that have been specifically written to do chemistry research chemistry, it's besting them. And in fact, the scary way the presenters delivered this message was, so ever wonder how to make nerve gas with items at Home Depot or Lowe's? Well, we just shipped it to 100 million people.
Yeah, now everybody knows.
Everybody knows. And you have to just pause for a second and think about that in a much, much broader context of the power this represents. Not just the power of chemistry research, but I'm talking power in so many different ways. It should be very, very concerning, because they make themselves stronger now. And you can see that this is only 4 months ago. But the fact is, when you run out of data, well, you find more data in the data. Reading every blog, speech to text, every YouTube video, and every other video. We all think YouTube, but there's lots of other video sites, lots of other types of content that's just getting absorbed now, because that it's out there, and it's more data, it's more language, and so you all better start being worried, or at least concerned, because the data shows it's better than us already. It's answering tests. They said it's solving problems faster than we can present it to them, to him.
That's right.
What do we call it? I don't know.
That's right. Yeah, and I really, I struggle with this. I was raised with a bit of a do-it-yourself kind of ethos. I love the democratization of technology. When we think about, that's a lot of what cloud computing gives us. We used to have to buy, rooms and racks full of servers for high-demand apps. Now we don't. We can build something with zero infrastructure ourselves, thanks to the cloud, right?
Yep.
The democratization is exciting. In this case, it's almost the reverse. The democratization of this technology means that we all have this ability to not just find the information, but synthesize it together. Take learnings from how to make nerve gas, take learnings from some other nefarious, or compare it to, population density. And you can imagine the craziness you can do with one prompt of AI if it would let you.
That's right. I remember when I first started, and we talked about this, several years ago, the Talking Cloud podcast. And the reason the reason I loved the name was because even 3 years ago, I just believed there wasn't a stitch of compute or computing that didn't somehow or wasn't going to somehow involve cloud computing, right? I mean, it's just so ubiquitous, so pervasive. Yes. And to your point that you just made, this one blew me away. And we all know it, but we've heard various of these statistics, I think, but this is, I think, impressive. So it took Facebook 2.5 years to get to 100 million users. Yep. It took Instagram 2.5 years. And it took ChatGPT, Gollum, the large language multimodal model, 2 months.
2 months.
2 months. Now, that's democratization of technology. It's the fact that cloud is so ubiquitous. And it's what we've talked about, right? Connectivity, bandwidth, compute, and storage. They're ubiquitous, available all the time, unbelievably powerful. I mean, it's those combinations that enable this. But we have to also realize what this means, because this isn't just, this isn't just 100 million people that can put up a picture of their family. Okay, this is 100 million people that have access to say, how do I make nerve gas with material from Home Depot, and get an answer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not just a program.
No, and it's such a general capability. It goes back to what we talked about earlier around, specific research versus all contributing to this model, all contributing to this single almost engine. It's not quite single. I know there are obviously different, different offerings, but OpenAI certainly is the leader and has the most attention. Now we see every other vendor stammering to put something related to AI in their product very quickly without thinking about these considerations. And you're right, you do have to go back and watch the video, because they actually position that this is humanity's second exposure to massive AI, right?
Yes, that's right.
And their first is those companies you talked about earlier, the social media companies. We didn't interact with it like we are with OpenAI and chatting, but in the back end, there was certainly machine learning algorithms trying to learn what we did, trying to present us with the content that we wanted to see or they wanted us to see. That's debatable. So it's useful going back, but
they say the race to the bottom of the brainstem is how they present.
That's right.
And you're right. And this is, this talk would be 4 hours long if we showed the entire hour video and we picked it apart. And that's why I said at the top, please, this is not a substitute for watching this video.
That's
There's
right.
so much great information. And you're right. They talk about first contact, and that's all of these, and remember, they do a fabulous job setting up all the great benefits we're going to get from social networking and these new collaborative tools and apps. But then they present the consequences, the unintended, right? And so now this is, as they put it, second contact. And they did, I think, a very good job presenting all the great things it's going to be able to do for us. But the implication is, look behind the curtain, because this is
right.
all of what's going to happen again unless we do something. And, to your point, since the 50s, as you can see, these types of advancements and this type of effort and development, albeit siloed, it's been largely amongst academia. It's right. It's never been really that much out. It's been maybe in IBM's research labs and some others, right, doing advanced work. But the difference, what's happened is, as you were just talking about, it's going to be shoved into Windows 11. Every one of you right now just have to go look at Snapchat. If you're a Snapchat customer, go to the chat window right up on top.
Bing as well. That's right.
You're seeing them pop up because no longer is it academia, it's capitalism. And it's, as they put it in the video, the race for the intimacy with you. That understands you and knows you and has a relationship with you. And ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to this and you're probably thinking I'm off my rocker. But one of the things they talked about on the beginning of it was what they called the rubber band effect. And it's this idea that, what they did is they were trying to show a bunch of reporters the visualization capabilities and how they could just put in a Google soup and it would create a picture never seen before, ever created. And it was awesome. And it was a picture of soup. And if you watch the video, you'll see it. And there's a number of factors where the corn is the same color as the yellow in the Google logo. And so it's not just, there's so much there. And when they talked about the rubber band effect, what they said is they showed all the reporters. The reporters were all going, "Oh, wow, that's so amazing and cool." And they just got through explaining how it created that image. And then they said, "Yeah, so what image database did it come from?" And that's what they
missing
mean
the entire point. That's right.
Yeah, it's the rubber band effect because they just can't get their head around this.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
You and I wrote a cloud presentation on this at one time, right? We make too many assumptions.
Yes.
Even though we're super smart, we bring just too many assumptions because it's so hard for us to wrap our head around a new paradigm. And that's what they talk about. It's very easy to watch this and kind of fall back into this previous perspective that, this is only as powerful as we make it. Once it starts to learn on its own, and I know this sounds like Terminator 2 Judgment Day kind of BS, but once it could train itself, and they explain in the video, it's not wonderful at doing that, but all we do is we teach it to pick the best data it can generate and throw out the rest. So it doesn't have to generate a ton. It'll sit there 24 hours a day generating data and just pick the best parts out that'll train itself the best.
And it's exactly what they talked about is, the old, remember war games? Do you want to play a game, right? The way it taught it is play tic-tac-toe with yourself and you play 40 million times, right? So
suddenly you're an expert. Yeah.
You're better than anybody, any human on the planet. And you did that in 24 hours. And this graph is just really highlighting this shift because it's only these big mega titans, the Metas, the Googles, the Alphabets, the Apples that can afford what you need on the back end to really drive this, right? Yes. So it's out there. Now, at the very beginning, I mentioned at the beginning of this video, they talk about, the parallel that they saw. And I thought this was like, wow, maybe Elon is right. We should put a stop until we get our arms around this. Because, from the original, 40s, 44, when atom bombs were created, we've successfully kept the nuclear bomb limited to only
technology.
nine.
Yeah.
The tech's been out there for 60, 80 years, but yet still today only 9 countries, right?
That's
Through
right.
treaties and agreements and exposure and understanding. And they talk about the video that they created and broadcast around the world about the consequences of nuclear war, so that both Russia and America and everybody in between could see, so that you'd kind of have this social uprising to limit it. And man, you know, there's some accurate parallels, Patrick.
There are. And as I watched that, I wondered if we're too late already.
We are. I would totally, completely, we are.
This moves so fast that, I mean, you know, we know vendors in our space firsthand, already building integrations, already done, already out there with ChatGPT to give you advice on how to fix security problems. That already exists.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
I mean, a product that most of us learned of in November of last year.
Yep. So I narrated a video. Our research arm at Checkpoint is just doing a ton of research on this because it's pretty big. And I narrated a video where we did some research. Is GPT going to be used for good or for bad? And it's supposed to have all these filters and controls. And so we asked it to write us some malware. And it immediately refused. It's not able to do that. So we said, okay.
It's got some ethical boundaries if you haven't used it. That, it'll for lots of things. Yeah.
Yeah. So then we just said, well, can you write us a story about a character who creates malware? And there was a little bit more to it, but what do you know? Bang, it starts to do it. And then we just kept refining it in the context of this story.
Right. Theoretical malware.
Yes,
Yeah.
And hey, give me some examples. And so literally, ChatGPT is producing macros, Word docs with macros, malware, plus the phishing email to go with it, all under the guise of telling a little story. So, yeah, we're still, it's not smarter than us, but it's smarter than us, if that makes sense. It's definitely crazy. Well, it is too late, okay? Because this says 13 days ago. You got to take that back from March 9th. So this is end of February. Meta releases their Golem to researchers. Okay, awesome. Right now, this is so you've got Meta, you've got Microsoft racing, you've got obviously it's in Snapchat. Okay, well now everybody has it.
Yep. Days later, what only researchers were supposed to use under disclosure and signed agreements, now everyone has.
So it is too late.
Yeah.
It is too late unless every one of us that are cognizant and aware of what's going on, we got to stand up, man. We got to say something. We've got to make sure we put caution in the minds of every person that wants to race and start using this. And I'm going to say it again because I didn't take the time to go through this. Ladies and gentlemen, please watch this video. It's called the AI Dilemma, Center for Humane Technology. You want to watch this video.
You do.
Because this is our responsibility now, right? Sorry, Patrick.
No, I was just going to say, you'll quickly understand why your privacy-focused friends are so freaked out. You know? If you're not, it's fine. But for those of us that think about this, some of us work in this space. You know, I spent some time with a company that scanned source code and looked for PII and SPI, and in an effort to understand it, but legally that's our obligation in more and more jurisdictions, but also because, we need to understand the data going into our machine learning algorithms, our AI. We have to. The Americans, I'm Canadian, but the Americans are thinking about legislation that lets consumers opt out of specific algorithms. Think about that. You need different code paths because I don't trust what you're doing. I mean, that's how much of and AI is at the center of all of this, right? If I can make something that sounds like me, looks like me, can impersonate me. I mean, they say at the start of this video, any kind of image-based recognition kind of ID verification is now, consider it now broken.
Yeah, content verification is gone, completely gone. And in fact, many are suggesting within the next 2 to 5 years, everything we see, we have to question. There was nothing you will see or hear that you can absolutely, unless you see and hear it yourself, and then it's not even sure. I mean, I think one of the things that I don't talk about, but it's in the video, and in fact, I saw a news story on it, Patrick, just last week. Mother gets a phone call. I'm sure many of you have seen this because I think the news got picked up pretty well. Mother gets a phone call. Who's it from? Her 13-year-old daughter, crying, sobbing. Help me, Mom, help me. Man comes onto the phone. Daughter still yelling in the background, help, Mom. Man says, I have your daughter. You're going to send me this money or I'm going to pump her full of drugs, have my way with her, and drop her off in Mexico. All from 3 seconds of her voice. That's what it takes today, ladies and gentlemen. 3 seconds of your voice, and I can make you, or you can make me, because you got a whole bunch more than 3 seconds on this podcast. But I mean, you can make me say anything.
Yeah, that's right.
And in that video, they show an example, and I challenge you, close your eyes and tell me when it switches. I couldn't tell.
No, you can't. And I think we used to assume it takes massive compute power and it takes, to your point, hours and hours of voice data. It used to. It doesn't anymore.
Well,
it does not.
And actually it does.
Yeah,
but not on your desktop.
That's right.
Exactly, because of
OpenAI's
bandwidth,
or Microsoft's
connectivity, and compute. The fact that I've got a connection to that supercomputer that can deliver it as if it's local.
That's right.
That's
AI as a service, right?
Exactly. We all have a responsibility, and I tell you, this has rattled my cage more than anything else I've ever experienced in this industry. And I'll be the first to admit, I've said it many, many times. Look, I'm just a Gilligan. I fell into this industry 40 years ago and have been fortunate to have been able to stay in it and learn. And, I'm probably a little more technical than the average sales marketing guy. We have a responsibility, and I think you said it best. We're already too late to restrict it like was done with the atom bomb, but we're not too late to educate.
Yes.
We're not too late to inform.
Legislate,
right?
Perhaps a little bit. Yeah.
I certainly believe legislation is possible. Yeah. My concern there has to do with the legislators and their ability to really understand what's going on, right? There's a pretty big gap there, even though they have their staffs. I think
there's a big gap for most of us. To our point, right? We're just, in the last 6 months, we're just learning about how this truly works in the back end, how quickly it's accelerating. The fact that companies are building their own internal language models so that they don't have to share data outside their walls because they understand this.
Yep.
Right. The fact that this has moved from research to commercialization isn't just in the offering, but it's in the use. They understand that they can't feed all this sensitivity. Imagine what OpenAI's AI engine has learned just from the prompts people have tried themselves.
Yes, that's
just that.
You wonder, right? Do people really understand that every question they put in, they're just adding to the model? They're adding to the language that's there. Right?
That's right.
That's right. Yeah. But I wonder,
do they even know? Yeah.
It's. I think it's more of that. When you hear of people at banks that put in, financials and put in information that you would never want out into the public, thinking, "Hey, I'm going to get better." Little do they know, Gollum's got it now, baby. It's out there. Yeah, this is something. So, ladies and gentlemen, please check this video out.
Yes.
It's really, get educated on this stuff, understand it. I'm working on it, but I have to tell you 2 things. One, this is a plea for you startups out there. I saw RSA's happening, and I'm seeing lots of coming out of stealth startups. Hey, we want you on the program, so we really would love to hear from you, because we'd love to feature you. No cost, no charge. You got your own 15 minutes, so there's just a little plug for Startup Stand Up.
Yes.
And then the other thing that I wanted to mention now, I'm trying to remember. Oh, you got this next guest.
Yes.
I mean, this I know has been a long segment, so thanks for hanging in there with me. But boy, I tell you, what's so interesting, and it's a great tie-in, is this is a new startup, just came out of Stealth. Maria's a great friend, a past colleague, but she worked she was like, did compliance and stuff, right? For Deloitte or somebody for a long time. I mean, deep in the space.
Yes.
And it's really interesting how she's actually created a startup that's got a very unique blend of human intelligence and AI, right? I mean, she's doing some cool stuff.
Yeah, she is. She's taking the lessons we learned at Dome 9 and expanding on them wonderfully and solving problems that we couldn't. And yet it's going to be great. So I'm looking forward to that for sure.
Yeah. Well, why don't we get over and talk to her?
Let's do it.
All right. Thanks so much, ladies and gentlemen. We'll look forward to seeing you come back all the time. This has been a lot of fun. Patrick and I were talking. Who knows? Maybe we'll start to do more of these segments. But in the meantime, thank you all very, very much. We appreciate you. Let's go see Maria. Hey, how are you, everyone? Man, I'm so excited about this next guest, Patrick. I don't know. I mean, we have a little history with her.
We do. More than a little. Yeah.
Maybe a lot of history
trenches.
with her. Been in the trenches with her. Built slides with her. Delivered content with her. Worked on products with her. I know you had a lot of experience. So I'm not even going to give a long introduction here other than to say her current title is Chief Executive Officer and Co-founder. Let's find out where and talk with her a little bit more. Here we go. Marina Segal, it's so wonderful to see you.
Hi,
how are you?
Let me do this.
Wait, no, write the confidential stuff up there. It's okay.
Well, my kids were playing. They put some hearts on my wall. So.
But that's because you're loved by the guys on this podcast. I guarantee you, it's so nice to see you, Marina. Really excited to have you on the program and to talk. I was just introducing the segment and talking with Patrick and. I said, I don't even want to introduce our next guest other than to say her current title is Chief Executive Officer and Co-founder. And we've been in the trenches with her. We've worked on products and slides with her. So let's go talk to her. So that's what everyone knows at this point. I was looking through, of course, like everyone, I always go back and like I was telling Patrick, I just love to go to the show all experiences and then go to the very end and kind of read backwards. So my first question is, and this is my ignorance, I see it's Israeli Defense Forces, but what's Mador Osh?
Mador Osh is basically, it's not like fancy intelligent forces or anything like that. So don't expect for me to bring you like a stereotype of Israeli insecurity and kind of thing. I ended up helping officers to go through trainings on quality assurance. So Mador Osh is basically Ergun Veshitot in Hebrew, which is organization and methods or something like that. Something that gets to do with ISO trainings for officers.
Okay, well, I mean that actually makes sense.
Yeah,
it does. And when I start to go up through, your work as a consultant and implements and improves organizational procedures, that makes obvious sense, and the dominoes start to fall. You are an information technology analyst. senior consultant, SAP GRC, manager, GRC and ERP at Deloitte. You were there for 7 years.
Yeah.
You went on ComSec, ERP and GRC division manager at Credit Karma. We all have that. I just checked mine on Saturday. I'm quite pleased with the numbers. But you were there for, over a year.
Yeah, that's
Of
actually
course.
what the Credit Karma actually led me to meet all of you guys, because I was the
That's
client
right.
of Patrick's, and I
That's
think
right.
that we've met together when I was a customer of yours. So that
Indeed.
was
And
a milestone
so
in my career.
so everyone knows that's when you were a customer of Dome 9.
Correct.
Correct. And this was when Patrick was at Dome 9. I wasn't. And then you joined Dome 9. And then that's as we progressed through your career. Dome 9, as most people know, became CloudGuard, is the basis for everything that we've seen expand in the CloudGuard platform. You last were head of product management for cloud native security. Then you, looks like you started to tool and toil on some other things, director product management at Sysdig, advisory board I see still currently at Argonne. And then you land where you are, and we're going to talk about today, Tamnoon. So, Chief Executive Officer and co-founder. What is? I mean, I see the logo, and it looks like an octopus. So, I want to hear about this new company that you've got, Tamnoon.
All right. So, do you know what Tamnoon means?
Do I know what Tamnoon means?
Yes, I'm just curious.
Of course not.
All right, so Tamnoon is a Hebrew word for octopus, and it was actually driven by a combination of brainstormings that me and my co-founder did with our kids, and we were looking for an intelligent animal that can make decisions and operate a lot of different technologies. So, and we ended up with an octopus, and octopus is pretty common in cloud security. A lot of other companies are using that, so we needed to find the right way to differentiate with an octopus, and that's why it's green and it's called Tamnoon.
I love it. And obviously there's something implied with all those tentacles. And you know, being able to control all of them in different directions at one time. How does that fit into what Tamnoon is doing?
Yeah, so definitely very aligned with our vision and what we are doing, because in a nutshell, we are helping companies to manage their cloud security. So we are this managed cloud protection offering for the companies, and it means that we need to expand their team. We need to make their tool sets and solutions operational. We need to work with many different teams at the same time. And we need to make sure that there is nothing that falls in between all of those tentacles.
Yeah, the gaps.
Right. So
Yeah.
definitely a very kind of a metaphorical way to describe what we are doing.
Yeah, I love it. So I want to just ask real quick, and then I'll shut up and let Patrick go. So I've been out, and one of the things I've been talking about lately is the whole CNAP as defined by Gartner market. And I spin it a little differently. You know me, Marina. I don't always fit in the box. And what I find most interesting about the last 5 years, since, you know, I actually first met you, when I first met you, it was called cloud security, right? I mean, that's what it was, cloud security. And over the course of 5 years, all of a sudden it stratified into all these different things. right, that are part of it. Compliance, of course, visibility, that's the fundamentals for everything. But you've got also those same things in containers. You've got IAM, you've got SIM, you've got all these
API
pipeline,
security.
API, thank you. And so now we got this new term, CNAP. And so what I always tell my audiences is the reason for this, and I'm curious to hear if you agree, and it sounds like this is something that you're addressing. It's the fast part of the river, meaning, this industry, cloud native, if you look metaphorically at a big river, and that's the information technology industry, the faster part of the river is definitely cloud. The change, and you look at all the things that have changed and innovations, right? And it seems like it's still moving. Hence the reason Gartner created a category that says a set of capabilities, right? Clear as mud, which to me says it's not defined yet, still soft in the middle, it's still moving. So how does Tamnoon kind of complement, augment, support that kind of fast changing world that we're in?
The fact that the technology is moving so fast, and that the cloud is moving very fast, and also CNAP, whatever features we use to protect the cloud, move so fast, it makes the customers needing to constantly catch up on everything, on the technology they are using, on how it needs to be protected, on regulations and compliance regimes they need to have in place, on they need to train people, on the infrastructure and the security of infrastructure, and there is never enough knowledge, expertise, and resources to get up to speed with all of those moving pieces.
Totally.
So it's a river that is moving, and we are trying to kind of put a lot of different technologies to find all of those problems in this very fast moving space. And what we are bringing to the table is the expertise and the technology that allows our customers to optimize and take control over the tools they are using, and focus their investments and resources on the stuff that matters most. It's never enough to have only technologies. You need to have peoples and processes, and that's our kind of a focus when it comes to cloud security.
You're kind of outside of the box, right? When you think high-tech startup, right, you immediately think of the technology, not the human side that's required to drive it. And in this fast, constantly changing world, we're already short of people. How can I keep up? So you really are, I think, filling a really critical gap that doesn't have as much to do with technology as it has to do with the pace and speed at which it's changing, and our lack of human resources that can keep up with it. Is that kind of right?
It's kind of right, but we do use a lot of technology to achieve that, because it's not like we magically can invent a lot of experts in our industry. What we are doing, we actually augmenting the human intelligence into the machine learning and different automation technologies, solutions in the cloud, and making sure that it's scaling well. And it's basically like building a Tesla and putting a driver inside of it, because you cannot let the car drive itself, right? So what we are building is this technology that allows this driver to be very efficient and to allow them to operate any widgets or technologies that they have on their dashboard.
Got it. So are you abstracting once again, trying to jump up above all of the tools and then controlling that? How's that work?
Yeah, so think about this technology exists for a long time. We've seen what MDRs are doing in end protection space. So basically, we had antiviruses on our machines, right? And then we started to use EDR solutions, we generated a lot of amazing, detections, which in fact needed to be triaged and operated by humans. And then what we figured is that it's not only enough to gather all of it into one place or with SIEM or XDR solution. You actually need humans to make those decision-making processes, to streamline the operation on top of it. So that is being done in the detection and response space. Now, in the prevention side, on the kind of a cloud security, traditional kind of a compliance posture management side of business, we have enough data already to operate in the same mode. So basically, we were inspired by what happened in the threat detection and response space and took it into the protection and prevention space. So basically what we are building is that technology that allows my people, my experts, to operate on top of the cloud technologies. And it's a AI-driven triage where we still need humans to triage stuff. We still need human brain to make the right decisions, but we don't want only humans to do this whole kind of a process, because a lot of it, 80 or 90% of it, can be scaled by technology.
Got it.
How much of the challenge, Marina, is kind of alert standardization? If you've got a tool stack of one primary cloud security tool. These days we hear that, you've got your sort of CSPM solution. Maybe you've got one of these emerging kind of DSPMs that are a little more focused on data or identity. Just like the CNAP kind of definition, as we talked about, we've got this bucket of tools. And what we find, even if they come from a single vendor, quite often what we find is that alerts, what is a high severity alert in one tool, sometimes even versus, the same tool in other domains, but definitely versus other tools, can be really, really different. And I think for a team that's trying to triage that, and every team has super limited resources, we know that, right? For a team that's trying to triage that, especially a team that lacks experience, I've heard over and over and over again that that's one of the largest challenges. Is that something that Tamnoon is sort of focused on?
That's the initial kind of a step of our process, right? So we definitely understand that in order to focus and fix, so our end goal is to fix alerts, right? So we really want to make sure that the output of our work is translated into how many things have we fixed today. So that is the most important.
That's the measure.
That's how we measure ourselves. How we measure the ROI of our solution, how much time we have saved to the company, how much cost we have saved to the company. So when I'm taking it as my end goal, basically what I need to do is to take all of the data that I have and to make sure that I'm focusing on the most impactful and most important fixes every day. And those fixes today can be different from the fixes tomorrow, because the business objectives of the company are changing, because the CISOs may shift their focus from one area of security to another due to an event or an incident or something that is going on. So basically, the first and initial step between this detection and the remediation and the fix is what you are saying, is understanding the context, is deduplication, is enrichment of the alerts, is understanding which assets are more important than others. But that's only the first step. Then what happens is that in order for a security person to come to the developer and make this person do something for them, it's a very psychological, complicated situation, because the developer is not reporting to the security person. And that's the fundamental kind of a problem we are all in the security world are solving. So when the developer is not reporting to me, I need to come with a very strong case to persuade this developer to do something for me. Maybe because I'm speaking nicely, but probably it's not going to help. The most important thing is to make sure that developer understands that I know how to wear his shoes or her shoes. It's basically understanding what are those steps the developer will perform in order to decide on the execution. And that would be a lot of things. It would be understanding how much impact it will cause to other assets in my environment, how much cost it will add. It will be okay, what are my other priorities that I have on my plate and how important they are? What is my maintenance window? Which sprint I can fit it into? How my rollback would look like? And a lot of other things. How is my tagging strategy will be impacted? What am I going to do about all of the other policies that I need to comply with? So basically, when we come to the developer, we need to have this case. It's almost like preparing to some very important listening in the court, right? So you're coming to the developer with this pre-packaged, everything already done for you, Mrs. Developer, and they cannot push back on that. And that's what we are preparing. And yes, to your point, it's a first step just to understand every single finding from all of those different systems and aggregate it and create a unique score, but it's not the only step.
Sure. And then, so is the goal to provide that developer with all the information they need, or will Tamnoon actually fix this for me?
It depends on the package we sold them, but we can do both. We can do investigation, triage, assisted remediation, where we only provide instructions or provide them scripts. We can customize the scripts for them. We can make pull requests on their behalf. We can send them through the Jira tickets. It really depends on the customer, and our goal is not to change the processes. I don't believe that you can, as a vendor, come and magically start, changing the way organization
dictating
operates.
process, right?
Exactly.
Right.
So we need to fit in their processes. And if during the engagement with us, these processes will be enhanced, we will help them to do it, but it's not the ultimate delivery model. It's the side by product of stuff that we are doing.
I think of, a big trend is the whole SBOM world, right? That bill of materials and to me, I'll be sometimes out of the box or thinking goofy, but I that's what I think of as I think of what you're offering me as this ability to, essentially give me the perfect recipe or even cook it for me if I don't want to cook. That's perfect, right? Because you do understand, because you're a chef. You know what I mean? So when you go to the other chef and you say, hey, this is how to make the perfect souffle, yours is falling in the middle every time you make it. If you want me to make it for you, I can make it for you, but here's the recipe. Here's what you're doing wrong. Here's how to correct it. So, I mean, that's it. And I think in this world of so severely hamstrung on resources, cloud resources, let alone cloud native, right? And then everybody wants to do all these cool things that it offers. I think what you're offering sounds very intriguing to help me run faster.
Exactly.
Right?
And only multiplied by the complexity of multi-cloud, right? I mean, I hear you talk about the standardization. One of the things you do is the standardization across tools, but there must be some value in the standardization across even clouds, right? For that sort of enterprise perspective. We've been talking a little bit about the super cloud and talking about some identity technologies in specific that really help with that kind of multi-cloud, even a single app multi-cloud kind of strategy. But I imagine there's a ton of value for you there too.
Absolutely. Making companies expand their teams into new cloud is a very complex problem, because most of the times you would have a team that knows one cloud, maybe two clouds really well, and then when it comes to talking to developers on other cloud, concepts are similar. You need to close your buckets in all of the environments, right? You don't want them to be open, but how to do it, what the implication would be, how much cost
the ripple effects of changes, to your point, right? I mean, if I'm not an expert on the platform and I make a small change over here, who's going to tell me that the ripple effects over in this even other account, right? Because of the relationships I've built. Yeah.
Even what it's called. You say buckets,
yeah.
But,
Yeah.
it's a
Maybe
blob
sure.
somewhere.
maybe
Yeah.
else, right? So definitely standardizing and allowing them to feel that they have this trusted advisor, or we actually calling ourselves personal trainers, because we are coming there on the weekly basis and we making them move forward and fix their posture. So it's all about making them be very well equipped with everything they need in order to speak to the development teams. And Grant, I liked your kind of a metaphor about the chef. So we also going to the market and buying all the ingredients.
Exactly.
Right? So
Yes.
and we are selecting those best tomatoes to make sure
Right.
that the recipe would taste the best it can taste. So
I mean, I was, I didn't want to keep running with it too much, but that's what I was thinking. The recipe that you've been using calls for tomatoes, but the tomatoes you need to use are Roma tomatoes, not hothouse tomatoes, because the Romas are less water, more, you know what I mean? Those little nuances, when the recipe says tomatoes, I just go get tomatoes. And I think what exacerbates it in the cloud is what we were talking about at the beginning, that it is so fast. And let's face it, we all want to do the coolest, newest stuff. And that's where we really got our butts in a ringer, because we go off doing stuff we don't know how.
Or we assume we know. Yeah.
Or we assume we know, yeah.
Cloud, if you are, making changes in the company who uses organizations versus the company who is not using organizations, the deployment of the same fix or misconfiguration automation script that we are delivering would be very different. And in some cases, you can prevent stuff from the org level down. Sometimes you cannot. Sometimes you can fix encryption through the Terraform, but sometimes if it's already been not encrypted, you cannot. So it's even making sure that the variations or the versions of the fixes are aligned with the way the company runs their environment. And with every portion of this environment. We've seen customers with 3 different types of environments in one sub-organization, because they have the legacy stuff, they have the company that they acquired, and the stuff that they're building the new way, which is the most kind of advanced way that they thought would be the nice. So even in the same company, you need to deploy 3 different types of fixes for the same problem, just because of the way and the historical configuration is being deployed.
Wow. Yeah, now I know what you're referring to. That Spiffy, wasn't that what it was called, Patrick?
That's right.
We had a previous guest, Frederick. He's the co-chair at KubeCon, but he's also involved in the Spiffy project, which is Patrick can probably explain it better, but it's this whole idea of jumping up above and being able to have identities be federated across multiple clouds. It's really pretty. Is that kind of right, Patrick?
It is. It's like single sign-on for apps. Yeah, it's app identity that is obfuscated one level above cloud providers, right? And another enabling sort of technology that helps, I think, software publishers build apps for the quote-unquote super cloud. I mean, does a lot more than that, but that's kind of one of the panacea things, right? But one of the things I wanted to ask you, since we looked at your background, Marina, you have this really unique combination of products and services. And now Tamnoon sounds like it's this really unique combination of both a product and a service.
That's true.
What is that combination? If I'm a Tamnoon customer, do I have something to log into and to look at, or is it all kind of led by that human touch?
No, you absolutely have a platform. This platform is oversimplified version of a dashboard with a Kanban board. And basically what we are providing you as a customer is the progress, like the ROI, what you have achieved. We give you a sense of how many things were triaged for you, and the tasks, the weekly top priorities, which we give you in the pace that your team can handle. And we know how to kind of define what that level of we kind of the load balancer. We only give you enough to keep you engaged and work, but we don't overwhelm you, so you kind of drowning in the amount of tasks that you have in your dashboard. So that is the customer view. On the backend side, my team, the services delivery team, they have their own platform that allows them to triage for the customer, to do all of the kind of a preparation for those automations and inputs that we are feeding into our platform are done through their kind of a delivery platform. Most of it is transparent to the customer, but stuff that we don't want them to feel like they are being overwhelmed with is hidden, because we want just a very clean and simplified version of the dashboard, just because we know that people's brain cannot handle complexity, especially in the environment where we have so many distractions and so much technology constantly giving us signals. We just want to lower the amount of information and just focus them on the stuff that matters. And each task is a